They come in,
Good.
they take up everything.
Good evening.
Yeah, multiple
I would like to welcome Billy Lowe, who is the lead pastor with City Church, who will lead us in tonight's invocation.
How are you?
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your grace on our lives. The fact that we are here, the fact that we're alive, the fact that we have breath in our lungs is just a testament to your goodness to us. And Lord, as we always pray, I pray for the city council that they would make wise decisions, that they would be discerning. Lord, that you would protect our city and protect our first responders as they care for us. And Lord, that you would be blessed and honored as we worship you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Lowe.
Thank you.
I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, November 18th, 2024 to order. The city encourages you to review tonight's agenda carefully. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the November 18th, 2024 regular council meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. As the mayor mentioned, if you would like to make a public comment, then you are required to complete a public comment card prior to the agenda item being called. If you will be representing an organization, a notarized affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. If you have not submitted your cards to me yet tonight, please bring your cards to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation may be asked to leave. Mayor and Council, as I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Doug Haney.
Here.
Councilmember Juliet Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Cookerly.
Here.
Councilmember Jan Jacobus.
Present.
And Councilmember Phil Cranmer.
Here.
For the record, Councilmember Andrea Veerhoff is absent. Mayor, you do have a quorum. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is approval of the meeting agenda. I would ask council, I'd like to move agenda item number 24-333, which is the appointment to the Milton Trails Committee to immediately follow the consent agenda. And I would like to add an executive session to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and litigation. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as read and proposed.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cranmer and a second from Councilmember Johnson to approve the meeting agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Next is general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
We do, Mayor.
Okay. General public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Please remember that this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name, address, and organization, if applicable, for the record. I will please ask you to please call the first public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. And as a reminder, the general public comment does get 5 minutes, and I will announce when 1 minute remains and will notify when time has expired. Our first general public comment is Christy Hayes. I invite you to the podium.
Christy Hayes, 13585 Hopewell Road. I'm speaking tonight about Milton's recently proposed large lot incentive opportunities. As a large lot owner myself, I find these recommendations very concerning. All the proposed incentives take what is now and has always been a citizen-run process and transitions it into a city-run process that cuts citizen engagement out of the equation. What do I mean by this? By turning what has traditionally been a multi-tiered process into a city staff by right decision, such as the proposed accessory buildings in the front yard and home-based businesses on lots of 3 acres or greater, and covered and lighted riding arenas on lots of 10 acres or greater, any and all transparency and notification to neighbors disappears. Is it a hassle to go through multiple layers of committees to get permission to use your property as you see fit? Yes. I admit I can see the attraction of streamlining these decisions. However, once you take a step back and understand the reason why these layers exist, you may come to realize why they were implemented in the first place. As someone who lives across the street from two former horse farms that were purchased by the city, I can attest to how easy it is for these monumental changes in land use to slip under the radar of even those who are paying attention. Because the city purchased the land on Hopewell from the former farm owners, there was no obligation to post a zoning change notice or alert neighbors to what plans the city had in mind for that property. And before we even knew the land had changed ownership, the city had voted to put up an athletic complex in our residential and horse farm area. As you are all well aware, we had to fight for our right to keep the rural character of our small slice of Milton. And to those of you who voted down the athletic park on Hopewell, I thank you. But as someone who had to spend countless hours and dollars to play defense against an incursion that would have dramatically changed the nature of our neighborhood, I stand here today on behalf of current and future Milton residents who may be caught off guard by the proposed by right decisions that will affect their rural viewshed and property values. There's not enough time in public comment to even explain the absurdity of allowing short-term rentals in the city of Milton. Maybe we should try to regulate the existing and illegal short-term rentals that currently operate within our city limits instead of allowing them carte blanche. And I would be remiss not to take a moment to comment on the city's insistent use of the term green space when discussing the city-owned property included in the Arnold Mill Small Area Plan Concept 1 and 2 of the Cox Road Activity Node. This property was not purchased with green space funds and was presented to council as a future recreation opportunity. It therefore cannot be labeled as green space as it belongs to the taxpayers. If these activity nodes are developed as presented, the city must inform residents of how they plan to hold the developers into keeping the land undeveloped and open as green space for all taxpayers and not just the activity node residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Will you please call the next speaker?
Mayor, I invite Mary Cronk to the podium, please.
Good evening. Mary Cronk and I live at 600 Hickory Mill Lane. My comments this evening are meant as a reminder to council about a wonderful and achievable opportunity the city and its residents have to preserve and protect Birmingham Park. To protect the park from future development by putting it into a conservation easement. At over 200 acres and just over 6 miles of trails and with parking for equestrians, it's our largest park. Birmingham Park is a jewel that we've been entrusted with, and it deserves to be treasured, protected, and preserved. Just over a year ago, on November 6th, at council's request, the city attorney presented high-level information on conservation easements, which are designed to protect land from future development, subdivision, or conversion to another use. Most members of council who gave opinions on the topic at that time expressed interest in, at a minimum, putting Birmingham Park into a conservation easement. At that time, Mr. Gerard stated that the process to initiate a conservation easement could take about 3 months. Unfortunately, conservation easements have not been discussed publicly since last year, November 2023. But I believe the time is right now to engage in the process or re-engage in the process. This year, the city purchased 2 properties on Deerfield Parkway and has begun the process of building an additional active park to join with Bell Memorial Park and Legacy Park, giving Milton 3 active parks. At the time of the Deerfield purchase, the residents were assured that the addition of the Deerfield active park space would fulfill the active park needs of the city. So with our active park needs taken care of, isn't it time to protect our passive parks for Milton's long-term future, starting with Birmingham Park? Putting Birmingham Park into a conservation easement would be an outstanding achievement for council and Milton, and a tangible expression of the importance of preserving Milton's equestrian and rural character. I'm respectfully asking council to take the necessary steps to put Birmingham Park into a conservation easement in 2025. Thank you for your time and careful consideration of this and all other issues Milton residents bring to you our representatives to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I invite Sarah Moen to the podium.
Sarah Moen, 130 Providence Plantation Drive. Like everyone who heard Ms. Christy Hayes' public comments from the November 4th council meeting, I am appalled by the ugly and hateful language Councilmember Cookerly used directly towards Ms. Hayes and indirectly towards those of us, presumably myself included, she dubbed cohorts. Even more appalling is the lack of rebuke by the rest of you on the dais to the uncalled for and unnecessary castigation by Ms. Cookerly to an individual and group of concerned constituents. Your collective silence is deafening. Name-calling members of the community uncivil, slaughterers, hell-bent, angry, losers, disgruntled, backbenchers, cohorts, and bitter is a communication style I find beneath the office that you hold. The rest of you have exposed your complacent agreement by not condemning that sort of language. It's a difficult job being a leader. I understand that. It's hard to not take complaints personally. As HOA president, when my phone isn't ringing off the hook or my email inbox is empty, I can rest assured that things within my neighborhood are running smoothly. When the calls and emails come flooding in, I know that work needs to be done. But no matter how many grievances I field, I would never in a million years speak down to one of my neighbors. I would not tell them to pick their battles, and I certainly wouldn't call them losers or hellbent or backbenchers, even if I disagreed with their position. Each of us has voluntarily elected ourselves for service to our community. With that come the concerns and sometimes uncomfortable complaints of the people we have chosen to represent. We are called to a higher standard and should be held to one. You do not have to like me, or any of us for that matter. You do not have to like or agree with what I or any of us have to say, but you do need to be respectful. And when one of you is disrespectful towards the people you work for, the rest of you need to have the courage of your Christian convictions to speak out against that hate speech. What you allow is what will continue. Council members are within their rights to disagree with constituents, but not within their rights to speak to them so caustically. Leader to leader, Mayor Jameson, you can't allow this kind of behavior to continue. Finally, as of today, November 18th, 2024, we, the city of Milton, owe approximately $37,770,000 in the chain case. Approximately $5,220,000 of that is interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Please call the next speaker.
I invite Jeff Moen to the podium.
Jeff Moen, 130 Providence Plantation Drive. The election November 5th gave me hope for change, accountability, common sense, and applying basic business principles to the unhinged political world. I run companies, and I view the political world through a business lens. While I'm optimistic about what the incoming administration will do, I'm very concerned about what the Milton City Council is doing. I also watched the public comment of Christy Hayes on YouTube November 4th and was outraged for a Milton City Council civil servant to use inflammatory, ignorant, and offensive language addressed to a constituent is unacceptable. For the Milton City Council to be copied on this vile response and do nothing means that the mayor, the city council, and unelected officials all agree. In the corporate world where I live, the person who makes comments like those to a customer, colleague, or superior would either apologize immediately or be fired immediately. If this person was my public relations person, he or she would be fired immediately and replaced with someone who has common sense and self-control. But even more so, if I, as the leader of the organization, did or said nothing, I would be fired by my board of directors or owners. The election last week clearly, or at the beginning of the month, clearly showed all of us that the days of different rules for politicians are over. I believe that Elon, Vivek, and Trump will drain the swamp, hold people accountable, fire the incompetent, and restore hope to the constituents who elected them. Now, the media got it wrong too, and they're paying the price. The media world will no longer be the same. Mr. Mayor, I ask you to address the inappropriate words of your city council person and demand a written, published apology. And if she won't do it, demand her resignation. If you remain silent, I believe your boss as mayor, the people of the city of Milton, will ask for your resignation. Members of the media, I ask you to report and publish these written remarks so that the people of Milton can see how their elected officials speak to constituents and what they think of them. Let the people decide if this is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you please call the next speaker?
I invite Laura Bentley to the podium.
Laura Bentley, 2500 Bethany Church Road. Milton taxpayers have received their property tax bills, including the green space bond levy. 1 year ago, November 13th, a work session was held and council gave direction to open the Hamby, Webb, and Providence Road green spaces. Emily and Sarah did an excellent job of listing the minimal expenses associated with getting these spaces open for the citizens to enjoy. Some important history about our green space bond, which is included in that flyer. November 8th, 2016, 83% of Milton residents approved the green space tax, agreeing to shoulder a $25 million debt for 20 years. Promotion of the bond highlighted parks, trails, and a citizen advisory committee. MGAC was formed and is a powerful example of diverse citizen expertise cutting through government bureaucracy and waste. They secured all but one green space parcel in less than 3 years, all with tremendous potential for passive uses. Deerfield at Webb Road offers a pocket of green space among Milton's most densely populated area. Central Milton, Providence Road at Bethany Road, 100 acres with a 5-acre lake, existing trails, and a connection to Providence Park. The vision of both MGAC and the City Council was to quickly allow taxpayers access to these public lands because the citizens had so generously supported the bond. Today, 47% of the acquired green space remains closed and unavailable to the public. $9.6 million of our tax dollars wasting away behind no trespassing signs. Our most expensive green space purchase, Providence Road at Bethany Road, weighing in at $6.9 million. When voters overwhelmingly approved $25 million in bonds to acquire land and green spaces, they trusted the mayor and council to use that funding responsibly, efficiently, and to the greatest benefit to our community. The fact that nearly half of purchased green space remains unavailable to citizens should be concerning to this council. I can assure you, Providence Road at Bethany Road
at nearly $7 million was not purchased to be viewed by your constituents from their cars. Your discussion last November directed the city manager to open Hamby, Webb, and Providence. The 2025 strategic plan, priority 3, public land and resources, goal number 5, assumes that our green spaces were already opened in 2022. These leave no trace green spaces, no need for amenities, bathrooms, lights, or sunshades. Parking, keep it simple, rural and accessible. Similar to Councilmember Crookerly's parking area directly off Providence Road. We could do that right next door. During my time on council, I was told that opening Providence Road at Bethany was a couple of loads of gravel and a bobcat for a day.
1 minute.
What could possibly cause a 6-year delay in getting it open? Council, please act quickly to open these properties as agreed so that the citizens of Milton can see and experience them as promised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I invite Adam Hollingsworth to the podium.
Adam Hollingsworth, 1475 Rolling Links Drive here in Milton. Good evening, Mayor and council members. It's great to be here. I'm the president of Milton Families First. We are a citizen advocacy organization focusing on protecting all those things that make Milton great. And one of the things that we think make for great cities is great governments. That's why we're so focused on accountability among our elected officials, but also among the vendors and service providers who provide services to you, the city, and we, the taxpayers. That's why I'm here to talk tonight about the Georgia Interlocal Risk Management Agency, known as GIRMA. GIRMA provides the city's property and casualty insurance, as you well know. Frankly, we at Milton Families First are shocked at GIRMA's defense of the city of Milton in the Chang v. Milton case. The taxpayers of Milton are at financial risk every single day that GIRMA remains your insurance provider. Since the city's incorporation in 2006, Milton has paid GIRMA millions of dollars in premiums. This year's premium was $325,000, 19% more than we paid last year. For that, we taxpayers expect and frankly deserve the very best insurance defense possible. That's what we deserve, and frankly, that's what all 370 cities and governmental entities who use GIRMA should expect as well. The question is, are taxpayers getting what they deserve? Are you, as a customer of GIRMA, getting what you deserve? On November 19th, 2016, you know the facts well. Joshua Chang was tragically killed in a fatal accident here in Milton. His family filed a wrongful death action, and it was GIRMA who defended the city. What's indisputable is that GIRMA failed its obligation to us, the city. The Chang family hired the Harris Lowry Maton firm, a firm that touts itself as the only Georgia firm to secure #1 verdicts in 7 different categories. 11 lawyers at the firm that the Chang family hired, all of whom are among the most distinguished members of the Georgia Bar. To defend the city of Milton, GIRMA hired a lawyer who, according to his own website, practices alone. A lawyer who does not specialize in civil litigation. Instead, his practice is very diverse with no particular focus area. When we looked at Westlaw, which catalogs cases in which lawyers are involved, here's what we found about the GIRMA hired lawyer. 90% of his cases were related to police misconduct, right-of-way access, criminal cases, insurance coverage disputes, and malicious prosecution. Only 2 cases, 2, dealt with wrongful death. A GIRMA hired sole practitioner with no expertise and focus on personal injury defense, a caseload far removed from the facts, against an 11-member law firm who only focuses on personal injury law. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we know the answer to that question. A Fulton County jury found the city liable for $30 million. A Georgia Court of Appeals upheld that verdict and found that the sovereign immunity cap of $2 million does not apply. Here's the irony. As you know, the most that GIRMA is responsible for under its policy is $2 million. GIRMA pays $2 million. We, the taxpayers, pay more than $30 million. An underfunded defense by GIRMA. Some in our community have said, well, it's the city manager's fault. It's the city attorney's fault. Surely somebody in the city staff could have done something different. Clearly, those same folks have not read the services agreement that GERMA has with the city of Milton. Here's what your policy agreement says. GERMA shall have the right and duty to defend any suit. GERMA may make any decision about settlement in its sole discretion. GERMA shall select the legal counsel.
1 minute.
And while it's true that a member like the city of Milton could hire its own lawyer, why would you? When your agreement with GERMA says any lawyer you hire has to be secondary to the lawyer that GERMA hires. So given the inability of you to fund a lawyer to serve the interests of the taxpayers who'd have no voice, why would you? I've also heard, just as an aside, a former council member mention that the city manager was directed to do a right-of-way analysis and remove obstructions. Well, she must be referring to the October 21st, 2019 Milton City Council meeting when the council passed 5-1 what Ken Gerard called a very utilitarian amendment. At no point during the discussion did any member of the city council direct the city manager to take any action with regard to right-of-way analysis, nor did the action the council took direct that either. Council members, Milton Families First stands with the 7 of you, your city manager, your city attorney, as we fight GERMA to get
Time's
something right.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
That concludes public comment.
Okay, I'll close public comment and I'll move on to consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Mayor, that first item is approval of the November 4th, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes. It's agenda item number 24326. B is approval of a renewal agreement between the City of Milton and DocuSign Inc. for electronic signature services. Agenda item number 24327. C is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Loose Design for conceptual design services on the Deerfield Area Active Park. Agenda item number 24328. D is approval of a goods and services purchases contract between the City of Milton and Galls LLC for the provision of police uniforms and related accessories. Agenda item number 24329. Our final consent agenda is approval of subdivision plats and revisions. The name of the development is Providence Road Investors Subdivision. It's Providence Road, Land Lot 843 and 886, District 2, Section 2. This minor plat is to create 3 lots related to the property owned by Providence Road Investors LLC with a total of 11.9134 acres and a density of 0.25 lots per acre. It's agenda item number 24330. Mayor Jameson.
Thank you. Council, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second. Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. So we will now move on to the moved new business item. Will the city clerk please sound that item?
Mayor, that moved new business item is consideration of a resolution appointing or reappointing members to the City of the Milton Trails Advisory Committee by appointing a board member for District 3, Post 1. It's agenda item number 24333. Mayor Jameson.
Thank you. I will turn it over to Councilmember Jacobus.
Thank you. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce Neil Pepevis, a dedicated member of our community, for nomination to the City Council for a position on the Trails Committee. Neil, originally from Atlanta, Georgia, moved to Milton in early 2021 with his wife Leah and their 2 daughters, Parker and Blakely. A proud graduate of Marsh High School, Neil pursued his love for outdoors at the University of Colorado Boulder, where he earned a degree in business finance. Professionally, Neil has developed a strong career in business development within the hospitality industry before joining a large account division of Brown & Brown, a publicly traded insurance brokerage. Throughout his career, Neil has remained deeply committed to community service, actively supporting startup charities, mentoring inner city youth through the North Point Ministries, and authoring a children's book, The Little Newt Under the Root, with a second book set to be released this winter. Outside his professional and volunteer work, Neil enjoys a variety of outdoor activities, including cycling, camping, and golfing. He also enjoys cooking and hosting friends and family. You'll often find Neil and his family walking their labs along Milton's scenic trail system or spending time in the downtown Crabapple area. As proud residents of Milton, Neil and his family are passionate about supporting local businesses and contributing to the growth and well-being of our community. His commitment to Milton's future, along with his professional experience and strong commitment ties, make him a great candidate for this position on the Trails Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. Any council discussion? I think you chose a great person. I see Neil every morning at Whitetail Bicycle. So great to see you. I know, and I've run into you plenty of times on Wood Road on the trails. So great pick. With that, I'll open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Neil to the Milton Trails Advisory Committee.
Second.
Great. We have a motion from Councilmember Cranmer and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to approve agenda item number 24-333 with the approval to the Milton Trails Advisory Committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Neil, come on up and I'll swear you in. And then I told your kids you'll take them out to get ice cream after that. So. Raise your right hand. Right, good.
I'm gonna, yeah, there you go.
That works. We good? Okay. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear and affirm. That I will faithfully perform the duties of the Milton Trails Advisory Committee of this city. And that I will support and defend the charter thereof. As well as the Constitution. And the laws of the state of Georgia. And of the United States of America.
It's a nice green to the backyard.
Council will come down.
Thank you very much.
See. Yeah, there we go. I was gonna say that. Be good. So 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please call the first item?
Mayor, that first item is the MS4 permit annual stormwater presentation given by our city engineer, Mr. Scott DeKotch.
Okay, having a little technology issue here. Trying to find the button to make this large.
So,
There we go.
Scott, in the very,
Does that work for you?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'll
you got
work.
it. Good job.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Scott Koch, your city engineer, and I'm here this evening to provide you with an update of the city's NPDS, or National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit that we have through the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Permit, which is a subsidiary to the NPDS permit, also known as the MS4. I'm going to apologize in advance for all the acronyms you're going to hear tonight. I will provide a quick overview of the regulatory requirements of the NPDS permit, what's in it, how staff is meeting the requirements of the permit, and the stormwater management plan. And just for clarity, I'm not asking for any council direction or action. This is just for informational purposes. It is a requirement of the permit that we do this annually. So this is a quick overview of what's in my presentation. I'm not going to go through all of these items, but this is a quick outline of the presentation. The annual reporting to the EPD is a requirement of the permit. The Georgia State EPD, Environmental Protection Division, issues municipalities the permits. We have a new one that spans from 2023 to 2028. We had that approved last year, so we are now in the second year of that permit. With the new permit, staff completed a revision of the old stormwater management plan. That's a pretty hefty document. It's about 60 pages. And it includes several new SOPs that we were required to develop. And it's thick. Probably going to get thicker as time goes on. The regulatory requirements for the MPD permit comes from the 1972 Clean Water Act. That act is 52 years old this year, and it deals with illicit discharges, industries, as well as municipalities, as well as agricultural stormwater runoff and water quality. There are two types of permits. There's a general permit, which covers a large geographic area like a city or a county, and then there are individual permits for things like wastewater treatment plants, private manufacturing facilities, and municipal facilities. The general permit regulates stormwater conveyance that is owned and operated by a city, county, or state. Basically, it regulates the collection, treatment, discharge of stormwater runoff. So that would be pipes, catch basins, manholes, ditches, retention, detention ponds, water quality treatment facilities, etc. So everything that you would expect to see in a drainage system. Under the permit, there were some enhancements that we had. The most critical one is that they changed the bacterium that was qualifying it for an impaired water from E. coli to the bacteria changed. I don't remember the exact bacteria name, but basically the bacterium changed. We are also required to conduct enhanced annual reviews of our ordinances, which we do. So the way that we handle that is I go through and I do a quick review of those ordinances. If there's things that need to be changed, we'll go ahead and make those changes, bring it before council for consideration and make it. If we feel as staff that there's not a need for that, then I just write a letter to the file that says that we reviewed it and we're good to go. The Fulton County Water and Sewer Conservation District, also known as the FCSWCD, is a regional quasi-governmental entity that regulates cities through Fulton County. It is tasked with the conservation and protection of regional soil conservation, water resources, and other natural resources. We are required to report to this quasi-governmental agency bi-monthly and annually, and we report the number of land development permits that we issue, the complaints that we have, the violations, and so on. The county board is funded through the state, and we partner with them as well as other cities for permit compliance. Getting into the heart of the program, these are the 6 minimum control measurements that we are required to meet. Every MS permit holder must meet these requirements nationally. The city has implemented 35 best management practices, BMPs, to address these 6 MCMs or minimum control measurements. Under the public education and outreach, we have pamphlets, we do a website, we do an annual presentation to elected officials. We have a social media campaign, which Greg helped me with last year or just last week. Under MCM2, public participation and involvement, we do storm drain markers, storm cleanups, adopt a road programs, and we have pet waste stations throughout the city, and we monitor how many of those are put out, and obviously we're not collecting them. But under the 3rd MCM, we have the illicit discharge detection and elimination program. And under that, we have a legal authority for that. So we have an ordinance, we have an outfall map, so we know where all of the stormwater is going. We have an IDDE plan, an IDED education component, and a complaint response. Under MCM4, this is predominantly managed by community development. And again, we have to have the legal authority for it. We have site plan reviews, site inspections, enforcement procedures, complaint response, and staff certification. So a lot of our staff are certified for erosion and sediment control. Under MCM 5 post-construction, again, we needed legal authority for that. We have an inventory program, inspection program, maintenance program, GILID, which stands for Green Infrastructure, Low Impact Development Infrastructure. We have a program for that that includes inspection as well as maintenance. And then finally, under MCM 6, pollution prevention, good housekeeping, there's a lot that we do underneath there. Deals with control and conveyance inventory, inspection, maintenance, street and municipal street sweeping, employee training, waste disposal, nude flood management projects, handled through community development, existing flood management projects, municipal facilities inventory and inspection. And then, as I mentioned previously in the presentation, the city has a revised stormwater management plan, or SMPW, or SWMP, for how the program is implemented and tracked. Under our enforcement and response plan, we have requirements to do testing for 2 of our streams. The first one is the Little River at Arnold Mill Road. We have a MOU that we implemented in 2022 with the county for them to do that testing. Under that, they look at macroinvertebrate populations, that's water insects, fish samples, water quality testing, stream reach assessment calculations, and in some cases, stream velocity profiles. Under the creeks, Cooper Sandy Creek, which we test, our total suspended solid rates have been going down in our chemical testing, which shows that the stream is improving in its water quality. It is still officially listed as a 303 impaired stream, but they did set total maximum daily loads, or TMDLs, back in 2026, I believe. We are meeting those. So at some point, if we continue to show a progression of lower and lower total suspended solids, we can petition the state and the federal governments to get that removed. It is quite a challenge to do that, though, but doesn't mean it's impossible. But the good news is we're improving. One of the things that we've done in my tenure here is we put together a linear transportation feasibility program. And what that is it exempts the city from being required to implement runoff control and water quality requirements for some transportation projects. The intent of that policy is to provide a reasonable justification for not meeting stormwater quality treatment requirements for capital transportation projects where it's warranted. Under that program, there is a major category and a minor category. There are 10 categories in all. An example would be, for example, if we're going to go do a pavement overlay on a road, we're not going to necessarily require that project to put in detention if there's not already detention there. Another example would be, under a minor one, is if we might be impacting a wetland or a cemetery, that there's reasonable justification to not meet that. And of note, one of the criteria that we have is cost. If we can't meet a cost for doing some water quality stuff that's reasonable, we can get an exemption. The state approved our program in 2023. I believe we were the second community in the state of Georgia that had their program approved. And the approval or denial of that is handled administratively by the Public Works Director. And then finally, when I gave the presentation last year, which I'm sure you all remember, we talked about that we wanted to go take a look at some of the larger stormwater needs that we have in the city. So in June 17th of 2024, Council approved a contract with Lowe's Engineer for us to go take a look at 13 projects citywide. We did that. Under that, they came up with conceptual costs, durations for how long it might take to get a project designed, purchase right away if necessary, and construct it. So we have that in queue. The cost of these 13 projects is somewhere between about $2.8 and $3 million. So one of the challenges that staff has is trying to identify potential funding sources. There are some communities that have implemented stormwater utilities. The grants aren't as lucrative or as common as they once were. That may change in time. I don't know. But I just wanted to let you know that a lot of the drainage infrastructure that we have in the city was constructed under Fulton County's purview. and does not meet our current engineering standards. And a lot of that water drainage infrastructure is at the end of its service life. So you can probably expect to see more projects showing up, but we wanted to at least begin to wrap our arms around that a little bit. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Any questions for Scott? No? Thanks for the update.
You bet. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would we please call the next item?
And Mayor, that next reports and presentation is the Mayfield District update presented by our Director of Special Projects, Mr. Bob Buscemi.
You know, when I watched Scott's presentation, I told him, I said, you know, this stuff could be a little dry, but I also told him that when we had those massive floods and a lot of rain, that nothing really flooded in the city of Milton. We didn't lose bridges or roads, so all of that stuff kind of lends itself to the protection of our infrastructure indirectly. So I know ComDev tries to do a good job in making sure everybody's got good stormwater.
I was waiting for a dad joke when you said it was really dry. I was kind of let down that you didn't have one to go with that.
It's I'm sorry. Okay. Scott does a good job with it. He's really great. Okay, so good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight just to give you a quick update. I know we normally do these at work sessions, but the last two work sessions were canceled, so I'm trying to sneak it into this one because I don't want too much time to go by because we've been really progressing very nicely in a lot of these projects. I'm here tonight for District Mayfield, and I just put up again the concept plan that was done by TSW at the time, and Council reviewed and approved it. And we've been working towards this. Now, we have, similar to what we've done on the other quadrants, we have landowners that are trying to amass some of the properties. We have, in this particular case, one landowner who has actually been purchasing many of them. I believe he grabbed 9, 10, 4, 11, 23. He just recently acquired 16 and 17 from Sally Rich Cobb. And the one with the star on it, it's not in the district, but he did that. And then the two near the intersection of Charlotte and Mid Broadwell, those two properties that have the triangle shape. So he's amassed quite a number of these properties, and I think we're kind of far enough along with getting one landowner to have enough control over what's going on here that it's time for the city to look at the road network. Now, the original concept plan, the road network was a little shown differently, but because of what we're seeing here, Lot 19 is still privately owned, so we're shifting the road down to Marstow Drive, and the blue line that you're seeing on the screen is indicating a proposed location of the road connection from Broadwell to Mayfield, and it would intersect Mid Broadwell Road. And then the section of Mid Broadwell from the blue line to the intersection at Mayfield I'll just say will be, I won't say abandoned, but it could be abandoned. It could be given to the adjoining property owners. We'll just say discontinued use for now, because I don't know exactly what the city is going to do with that property. But that portion or segment of roadway would probably just have discontinued use. And then the traffic would go and follow where the blue line is going. So when you do these quadrant developments, the road implementation of a road network and stormwater management are probably the two key elements that then, once are completed, would then allow developers to come in and actually start, developing and building buildings. We have to have those two in. When we did the northeast corner, we put the road in. The extension Heritage is just an extension of Heritage, right? And then we put the pond in for stormwater detention. And once we did those two elements, everything started building behind us. So here, this is the first step would be the road, and to start to look at where proposed stormwater could potentially be, which would be in the low-lying areas. So we started to lay this out, and this is just a quick right-of-way acquisition kind of proposal of where it would go. And as you could see, it would affect some property owners. And I did talk to several of these potentially affected property owners. They may not be, depending until we design it. Like Larry Davenport, who owns the what is that? 5 Mid Broadway Road, and he was all in favor of it too. So a lot of the property owners kind of like the idea of putting roads in, even though it takes some of their property away, because it gives them road frontage, which then increases the value of their property tremendously, especially in form-based code, and give them access. He'd have access now on both frontages of his property. So this is sort of what we're looking to do. We laid this out with Public Works. Robert Del Ross and Sarah Leaders really kind of helped me figure this out and drew this diagram. And this, I think the next step from here would be the city would like to consider the engagement of a consultant to start to develop a conceptual design to at least the preliminary development level. So when I say preliminary development, that's saying that it would also include not just the mapping of the road, but like grades and drainage studies and things. So it brings it up a little bit further than normally would just be a concept kind of review. It's going to develop it a little bit more. So we wanted to show you that today, and I know they're both here in the audience, so if we have specifics about how that would get funded and done, but it would be, the staff, I think, would be able to initiate that. We want to make sure the council's okay with that. And then this map kind of comes down just a little bit on the view, but it shows a potential of where we think the best stormwater management facility would be located for the district. Now, this is on private property, and we don't own this property, so I don't want to give anybody a headache tomorrow morning thinking that the city's coming in and putting it here. But we are starting to just look at potential areas of stormwater. And what we could do with stormwater is look at it two ways. One is just the stormwater that would handle the road surface area, or stormwater that would then handle the entire district. So these are areas that I think would be potential. There's about the volume that you would want. Of course, the larger the lake, the less the vertical rise and fall would be, so it make it look more aesthetic. If it was just a stormwater detention pond of itself, it could be very small, narrow, and deep. But if we'd like to make a lake like we did at Mayfield, on the Mayfield Lake, I think that looks very nice, attractive. And then the orange line you're seeing on the bottom, community development. I work with these landowners, and we already have commitments with their plots are showing that they'd be donating that right-of-way area that's in orange, which would then give us road access to any potential future park that the pond would make. It's just a thought. We are getting that property. They're only building segments of those roads, not the entire road, but they are donating the land. So that works out pretty nice. So again, that's just a potential. And that other property that's in purple was also purchased by Jefferson and his team. So that's just another group. So he's got the ones across the street, the triangle pieces, and that one as well. So I think we're really coming far along on this. And the next step would be for staff to initiate this consultant selection to design is conceptual, preliminary conceptual, a little bit more than just conceptual, but preliminary roadway. Let's see what it does, how much real impact we have, how much grading there is. What's the real impact to these property owners? How much, because when I talk to Larry Davenport, he says, oh, okay, but how much land are you actually going to take? Sometimes the road is only 44 feet in width, but, with the grading and everything, it might be more. So, of course, everybody has reserved judgment on saying, yes, Bob, we're interested, but, can you please show us what that impact would be? So I think that would really be the next step in this phase of a project.
Will the consultant start looking at stormwater areas too? Will that be included in the package, I guess, RFP, or is that separate?
So would we have the, Robert? I think we could, but I don't know what you.
Good evening, Council. Yes, Mayor, it will. We're planning on looking at several key variables in the district that would impact public cost, including land acquisition, regional stormwater improvements, traffic improvements, and utility accommodations.
The whole gamut.
That road that goes from Broadwell to Mayfield, what's the approximate cost of building a road that long? And how wide would that road be? Is it about 30 feet wide, or is it more than that?
Let me get this back up. The road right here?
Yes.
Yeah, that's normally, we do a 44-foot, but I mean, we could look at a 50-foot right of way. And when we did the extension of Heritage, we even went wider and put on-street parking. So that's why I want to study the whole area to see how much
Is it
land
that
are we
wide
really
because of the
taking.
sidewalks and everything?
Yeah, with the sidewalks and all. I think this road will probably be narrower because we're really not looking to make it quite as accommodating for traffic as the other road. It's much more of a circulation issue. This would be more internal. So I think it probably is going to go to about a 44-foot right of way without on-street parking.
And what is the approximate cost of a project like this?
For construction?
Of the road, yeah.
I don't know, Robert, do you have an approximate cost?
I mean, I'm just looking like,
That's one of the key variables they're going to be looking at as we hire the engineer to look at the concept work. We're going to be dialing into what the public costs of this district bringing in online.
Okay.
Total cost, we're talking millions of dollars.
And is it typical that the developer pays for some of the stormwater, correct?
We're going to be looking for the engineer to, the way I described it, maximize development potential and maximize public benefit while minimizing public cost. So there is going to be a cost share. The concept work will help define how much of that cost share is on the private side and how much of that cost share is on the public side.
Okay, so really we need to take this next step in order for us to really have that discussion later, correct?
That's staff's recommendation, yes.
Okay.
But if we wanted to aggregate stormwater, the cost is ours to acquire the land, or are we going to divvy that up? How would that work?
Not necessarily. As Bob stated, sometimes there are win-win scenarios where the right-of-way is provided and the capital cost is paid by the city and the property value gain is to the private property.
Okay.
When we did the northeast corner, Mayfield Lake, we 100% of that cost was absorbed by the developer. And they even absorbed the cost of increasing all the pipe sizes for everybody upstream to flow their water into the lake. And then the city put together a plan where anybody who does developing north, upstream, has to pay a fee for maintenance. So even though once they were done developing that lake and all the amenities and the new dam and everything that went into it, then the city took ownership of it. They transferred it to the city and said, you can have it as a public park. And then the city said, well, look, anybody who's bringing their water into the lake would have to pay a fee. That fee, Bernadette, is, I believe, kept into a separate fund, right? And then, so any future cost to maintain that lake, we'll have the funding for it because it's an independent cost. So I think once we go to set this up, I think the stormwater, to answer your question, Mayor, would be absorbed by the developer, and anybody who develops would have to pay into that system. If the city does it up front, which is one option, then we would just charge everybody who provides water into it, or let the developers come in and build it and share that cost up front, which I prefer, so that we don't have to shell the money out in the beginning. But either way, I think it would be a cost that's transferable to the developer.
Hey, Bob, do we have an overarching project plan with key milestones like this one, hiring the consultant, and timelines, like the full horizon?
Okay.
When we would wrap this thing up? I'm just trying to understand the time horizon, what the key milestones along the way are. If we have that, great. I would love to get it. If we don't, if we could get one made, that would be great. Just from your perspective, how long will it take to get to the point where these landowners can start developing? What does the time horizon look like for the district?
That's the reason why we want to engage this consultant, because they can come in, say, okay, this is the timeline to design the road, you know what it's going to look like, here's the cost. Then we could all look at it. And depending on how the council reacts and says, okay, we want to go ahead and start building the road, or let's hold off on building the road, or we build segments of the road. So all of those I think once we get through this conceptual design, I'll be able to give you a timeline. It will be much more real. Right now, it would just be, throwing darts at a board, because it's really not, until we know what the real impacts are. Any of the property owners objecting to it? Do we have to go through that process of, trying to take property, or are they all willing to donate it? I just want to get through this concept plan. I think that would really give us the roadmap.
And how long do you think it will take to get through that concept plan?
Robert, how long do you think it will take?
Stand up, Rob.
One more time.
Just roughly.
So from the point that we bring you a contract to award, 3 to 4 months. It'll take us a little bit of time to go through procurement. That's what we're going to be starting, assuming we get a positive reaction here tonight, working with purchasing to hire the design team.
And how long do you think it would take them to finish that?
After they're under contract, concept design, 3 to 4 months. Concept design should go relatively quick.
Okay. So 3 to 4 months to get it under contract, 3 to 4 months to do the work.
That's correct.
So 6 to 8 months from now, we should be in a good spot to
Start.
start.
Construction of the road.
Right.
Yeah, and then the road construction would have to go, and we'll tell you how long that's going to take. But I know that, I think that if the developer knows that we're progressing and we're starting and the road's coming, some of his development, he could probably start putting some plans, and he'll kind of know it's solidified, what it's going to look like, so he could start developing his end too.
Right.
Because they're pretty anxious to get going as well. So I think what I would do is probably tell them to run it concurrent with us, until we do it. Now, when we did the north quadrant there, we were ahead of the developers. We were going pretty quick, and then, some of their buildings actually ended up being higher than we wanted them to be, and they ended up having to put steps and all. So I'm sort of wanting lessons learned. Let's avoid that. Let's make sure that we kind of keep it together. Because sometimes, if the two of us run different speeds, it did lend some problems. It's hard to detect that, but if you walk around, you'll see some of the buildings have some steps and railings.
The one question I think Councilman Jacobus brought up, the width of the road, because when this was first went before us and we went through the concept plan, it was going to be like a village style.
Yep.
And so I think a more narrow road would be probably the more keeping with what everyone was assuming this would kind of be. So that's just something to kind of think about as you go through with everything.
Which I agree, Mayor. It's that's why I was saying the 44 is probably where we're going to end up going.
Okay.
Because
More
the
of
other ones are in the 65s and 80s.
25 mile an hour speed limit type deal?
That's correct. 25 miles an hour, yeah.
Any other questions for Bob on this?
It's moving along pretty nicely.
Great.
It's good news.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Thank
I think you're
you.
going to stay up here for the next one. Will you
Yeah, I
please
think I am.
call that next item.
It's the Deerfield District update.
Yeah. Go back.
Here comes your aid.
You got it?
There we go.
Yeah. My person. Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council again. Can't believe next week is Thanksgiving. It's going too quick. Again, we missed last month's update, so I'm going to apologize in advance. This might be a little bit longer than it normally would be. But again, this plan is really moving along very nicely, and we have a lot of good feedback for you all tonight. Okay, so we'll discuss project updates, the open house event that we had at Stone Creek Church, which was very well attended. We have some public input summaries and key takeaways, which I'm going to have the Cooper Carey team, Allison Bickers will be up discussing coming along. And then our next steps in the project timeline and health, which is actually going very nicely. So I'll jump ahead and tell you it's all good news. Okay, project updates. So we have the GDOT update. Again, we had some meetings in July and September. The city received some official notices from the chief engineer. At the end of September, the city did send a response letter to GDOT's chief engineer. They also sent us a list of property owners who did not sign the right of entry forms, and we did help GDOT get in connection with all of those property owners. And GDOT has started property cleanup, and they said it would take 3 months. So they've done some of that cleanup. They haven't done all of it. They haven't done the fencing and the sod work yet, but they have removed a lot of the debris. And I think it's starting to look better, but it's still not done. And we're still keeping in touch with GDOT to make sure that they keep up on all their promises to clean up the corridor.
Bob, can we get a list of actually what GDOT is going to do? So I'm getting a lot of questions about, for example, in front of the Fries. Are they going to rebuild the fence, or are they just going to take down what they damaged and just leave the pillars? If we can just get an idea of exactly what GDOT has agreed to do along the corridor, it'd be very helpful. Because, I mean, we all know it looks terrible, but I'm not sure it's worth going back and rebuilding a fence in certain areas, but I'd like to know what they're going to do so I can tell people, well, this is what's going to happen over here and here.
Okay. What they've promised us to date is that they will rebuild those fences. They will put new sod and grade and put new sod down for land cover. They will not replace the trees. And if there's any stone walls that came down, they're not going to repair the stone walls. So if they remove the stone pillar or something, they're going to leave that out. If it's a fence, they said they'll rebuild the fence.
Okay.
And that's what we've got committed from them to do. So overall, I want you to know that the city is working with GDOT. I'm not going to say anything is easy, but we are working with them. We are in communication with their staff level personnel, and we are looking at important items like landscaping in the medians. We're making some progress there. We're going to come up with a landscape plan to show them exactly where we want trees, types of trees, get their reactions. We are looking at sidewalk widths. And locations. We are working with them on crosswalks. They've even suggested some mid-block pedestrian crosswalks, signals and lights. Which I was a little surprised to see, but they did suggest and say that they would look at that. They are we're working back and forth on the speed limit study. They're saying they want to do a study at the end and determine what it is, and we're trying to tell them that we'd like to redesign the corridor to that speed limit now. So we are going back and forth with them a little bit on some of these items. We'll see what happens. I'm not shifting direction on anything that we told the council we would do and keep as a priority. So we are staying pretty firm right now on everything that we had told and asked GDOT to do. Okay, and then on September 24th, we also met with the CID just to go through that to see if there's any way we could be better partners with the CID to make sure we keep them in communication so that when we deal with developers who are coming in to do these developments, that we can explain to them what the CID is all about and try to get them to be members of the CID, because I think that expansion of the CID map will help us in the long run, because they do fund large projects and small projects. And that's another money source there that potentially can help the city in funding some of these improvements. Project update. So we're still having group meetings. We did economic development on 9/27. We did transportation and mobility on 10/1. We did parks and open space on 11/1. These were all really great meetings. We're getting a lot out of them. I think we have consultants coming in discussing each one of these to the team, and we're kind of working through them. Next will be architecture. So then we'll start looking specifically at architecture. We presented updates to the design review board. They've been fantastic. We've been in front of them, and they are really giving us some great feedback on open space and architecture and the relationship between open space and the architecture. They're a great board. They're really engaged and really taking quite an interest. I just want to thank everybody here for your selections to the DRB board are just phenomenal. They're really, really doing a great job. I can't speak highly enough about them. They're just a great board. They're really, really engaged and really working with me on stuff, and I've been getting a lot. We also presented to the Trails Advisory Committee on November 14th, another great board, and we told them that we're looking at the locations, which we're going to show you tonight, of potential trails and our concept of what trails are. Trails were like a huge response from the public. So it's really important that we engage them. And I'm glad we did, because I told them it's not just the lines on a paper. We really want to know, what is the feeling of the trail? What does it look like? How is it labeled? How is it identified? What amenities it should have? So we're really trying to get to the next level. Right now, they've just been looking at trail plans with lines on a page saying, where are they located? This segment, that segment. How much money do we have? We're really now taking them to the next level, saying, what should the trail look like? How do people interact on the trail? How is it markered? So we're really, I think at the next meeting, they're going to come back with some great ideas on that too, and we're going to present to them. And then we have the Urban Design Manual, which is underway. And we gave examples to our consultants of from other municipalities, what it's going to look like. We're still targeting to complete the Urban Design Manual on 12/31. I think this is key, because I'm hoping that once that Urban Design Manual is completed, it will give the council enough confidence to say, okay, maybe we can lift the moratorium, which I'll go into. So I'm really hoping that, if we stay on target with that, and so far we've been hitting our target deadlines. So I just wanted to refresh the council's memory a little bit on this urban growth boundary. We did, community development did work through and identify what we call an urban growth boundary. And the whole idea of the urban growth boundary is that development and density and transportation all would be looked at in that district a little bit more urbanized than it would on the balance of Milton. So if you look at Milton as a whole, it's a pretty large land area. And I think the staff's been doing a wonderful job, and the council's been supporting keeping Milton rural outside of the urban growth boundary. I mean, we've really been pushing for that, and very successfully. But I just want to remind you that within the urban growth boundary, this was always looked at as our commercial core, right? It's our economic engine, so to speak. And I think we have to keep reminding ourselves when we look at proposals that come in, that we only have so much area that's sewered, we only have so much area that's commercially zoned, and the envisionment was always to keep these things with a strong commercial base. That's the reason why this council, other councils, prior councils, always put restrictions in saying, we don't want a lot of housing, we want a 50-50 ratio, we want to make sure that we're not inundated with a lot of housing, because they're all lining up at the door. If I tell them you could do housing, they'll all come in and do housing tomorrow. We're really waiting for this commercial stimulation. So again, just to remind you, these are the potential redevelopment sites that we're looking at. We have the one on Morris that's like 67 acres. We have the Verizon site, which Verizon is now interested in putting up on the market. That's 51 acres. That's a big hub. We have another 10 acres. Then we had the Crescent property, which was the city park. We have the Morris and Webb property at 25 acres. We have the whole old City Hall site, which is actually getting populated right now. Somebody bought it in August, and they're temporarily letting FEMA use it as an office, but it's all occupied. So that's good news, because the whole idea of the sites that I just indicated to you in this district here, which is our T6, is it's really our strongest employment base. So you got to remember, it's like the economic engine, it's the commercial core, but it's also where we had previously our strongest commercial employment base. And that was really key to kind of keeping that in the city. The last time I spoke to our prior economic development manager, she showed me statistics that we're at like 11% ratio between commercial and residential, and other cities around us are up at the 40s. So I think when we did the urban growth boundary, everybody said, well, we want all our tax burden to be on residential. We would like it to be on the commercial. And it would be nice to have this employment base with people coming in, bringing jobs and money and interest there. So I just want to kind of do that. Now, when you look at the Fry's property, which is 17 acres, and then the 51 acres from Orkin and the 10 acres above that, and it says 50 acres for Stone Creek Church. It's really not quite that big because the back is not considered, but the site is 50 total. But those areas I'm looking more at, those would be more like retail centers because they're on abutting Highway 9. So I think that the strength there would be the retail component. If there is some housing, I think it would be subordinate to the retail. I mean, you would go there for the retail experience. You might still have some housing, ratio-wise, but you really go there for the retail experience. So I would say that the lower area is where our commercial base is. The Highway 9 area is probably a strong retail base. And then when I was looking at this with Cooper Carey, I think we both agreed that the Verizon site could be a nice hub, and the Orkin site, the 51 acres, which is Target, would be another hub, and then we would make a trail link between the two. And I'll show you those when Allison gets up. She can show you those. So here's some of our existing corporate office buildings. Again, I think they're all in great shape. The owners have kept them in great shape. So I just want you to know none of those are really kind of ailing. I think the Fry's property is showing signs of some neglect. We keep talking to them from a code standpoint, but they're just not really maintaining it as much as these projects are. These different developers that are in here, these landowners, are really keeping these commercial buildings top notch. I've walked through them all, and they really keep them in good shape. And I'd like to keep that strong corporate employment presence in this area. And this is the Verizon site. Again, very well maintained, and even the interiors, they're all new. Okay. So the open house at Stone Creek Church went really well. We had a little over 100 people attending. They were mostly locally based community members and business owners, which I think was really a nice hit. We did ask people where they were coming from, and a large percentage, almost all of them, were from the local area, which is a little different from our online survey, which was around like 55 to 45. We had 6 session tables. We had guiding principles, transportation, mobility, building architecture, open space and parks, amenities, outdoor and events, and landscape design. We're going to go through the results of those, of what we found here. These are just some photos. It was extremely well attended. And the nice part about this open house, and I just want to tell the council that we try to encourage more people of all ages. I know it sounds kind of funny, but we wanted different age groups in there. We wanted the 15 to 18. We wanted the 18 to 25. We wanted the 25 to 30. Because if it takes 5 years, 8 years to really get this all done and developed and completed to the point where it's all up there, that's going to be our future leaders will be there. And I wanted to keep them. I know that sounds kind of funny. We always talk about like people going into their senior years. How do we keep them in Milton? But I also want to keep the children in Milton. So I wanted to hear from the different age groups. What would it take to keep you in Milton? What do you like about Milton? Why would what would force you to say, oh, I don't want it here anymore, I'm going to leave? Because I think it's nice to have that transition over the years, where people are there, their kids are staying local, taking care of the parents. So I'm really trying to get that into this program to really get that feedback to report back to you. And you could see different age groups here. It was really nice, and we had a great group. Just some more pictures. Okay, so the public input results and key takeaways. I'm going to ask Allison to come up and just walk through what we've learned from these events.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. Hello. So yeah, this is the survey of the public input that we've gotten so far. And I know some of you have heard this. So one of the things, we talked about guiding principles, and we established these early on in the project process. And what we did at the in-person meeting, which as Bob alluded to, was about 85% of the people who attended the meeting and answered the question of where they lived or worked were from Deerfield. So it was a very high participation rate from the study area versus outside of the study area. And so the guiding principles that we have established through conversations with the community and with the leadership here in the city was, when you are in Deerfield, you are in Milton. That Deerfield continues to grow as a place that businesses and local people want to be. It provides comfortable and safe places to walk. And if you can tell, it's hard on my screen to tell, but that's blue. And that actually got high votes at the community meeting as one of their favorite guiding principles. Also creating improved connectivity by increased options. Defined by a vibrant and high quality public realm and architecture, and evoke a sense of beauty and shade through landscape. So we asked, we asked about landscape. We asked the favorability that we asked. One of the things we talked to them about were landscape elements and public parks and gathering spaces. And what you see here are favorability for contemporary design was much lower, and this is expected. We, and I think I've said this to some of you before, we made sure to put in some imagery that we knew would probably not get favorable votes, but we needed to weed that out and confirm what is liked and what is not liked. So you can see here, there are some contemporary elements that the community liked, just as an example. But we also asked the questions, what are the 3 new things you'd love to see or do in Deerfield? And overall, the comments that we heard back from were related to infrastructure and transportation. And what does that mean? That means, and you'll see a theme, which is better infrastructure for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles, so to speak. Make it easier to get around, avoid congestion. But really, it was people want to be able to get around in ways other than having to get into their car to move around Deerfield. So if people could get from Cross Creek to the retail core of Deerfield. Could they do it in another way? Well, they love the opportunity to do that. It's hard to imagine now with how Highway 9 is and the current connectivity, but how can this implementation plan start to layer in, thinking 30 years into the future, additional connections, just like what you just talked about in the Mayfield district, thinking ahead to make it easier to get around on ways other than just cars, but also not limiting cars either, right? The other things that getting 30% of the comments were related to land use and redevelopment. So a lot of the comments around land use expressed support for mixed use developments, residential above retail, thoughtfully integrating new housing and commercial spaces. There was an emphasis on maintaining a balance between new development and preserving Milton's unique identity, sensitivity about balance. And what I think we are learning through all of this is obviously that landscape plays a huge component in creating an identity for Deerfield and reflecting Milton's identity as a place of rural character, but maybe this is a more active portion of Milton. And so how do you infuse that into a place with higher activity level than other parts of the city? And then green space and parks. They wanted to focus, comments focused on creating trails, green spaces to gather. There's a huge feedback related to just wanting places that you can sit and linger. There's really not that opportunity in Deerfield, and so how can that be layered in? And then, of course, what is your favorite thing about Deerfield today? So a lot of people talked about the look and feel along Deerfield Parkway and how, and if you're on Deerfield Parkway, it is quite nice. It's got trees, there's places to walk. It's very comfortable to be on, whether you're in your car, you're on a bike, you're by foot. You feel comfortable. Speeds are low, and there are mature trees and shade. And then, as we have seen consistently, what people really love about Deerfield is the convenience of the retail. You've got your Walmart, you've got Publix, you've got places like Brooklyn Joe's. Maintaining that accessibility to places like Target is important. You don't want to get rid of that. That is really important to the community. It's also important to the tax base, right? So we had a table discussing mobility, and mobility really addresses all the things that we've talked about: cars, pedestrians, bikes, other ways to get around. And so consistent with every other conversation that we've had with the community at the mobility table, there was a high, improving overall connectivity was highly desirable. So what you see on the right-hand side is a map that we had people put string about where they wanted to get to and from on the map. And so it didn't have to follow anything. You didn't have to follow current roads. It's just where do you want to get to and from? And so sidewalk gap infill came up a lot. Extensions of recreation-focused trails like the Alpha Loop. Alpha Loop comes up a lot in the comments that we've gotten. Streets that make circulation easier. Of course, as we all know, Highway 9 traffic speeds are a major concern for neighborhoods, and design of key intersections are an issue of concern for the city and the community. Since walking is a major desired form of connectivity, an increased focus on pedestrian safety is important in this plan. So when we looked at the architectural look and feel, and we've had a lot of conversations, and what I would say about this feedback that we got at the open house, it's been very consistent from the design review board, the planning board, the the team that's meeting once a week. So it's been really clear, which is very helpful for us as we do the design guidelines. So this is retail favorability. So if you look, these are the top three vote getters of what we presented to the community, and they all got high favorability ratings, right? And what you see is elements that allow amenities to flourish and to define. So here it's not as much about the architecture, although that is important, but it's also how it relates to the outdoors. And then we asked about mixed use architecture. So this could be, any kind of use above retail. And this is very consistent, again, with what we saw across the board. The picture on the left getting the highest favorability with 70% favorability. But what you see again, I think is consistent is, again, high quality materials, a lot of variation. It doesn't look flat. There's some human scale to the ground floor. The way it relates to the surrounding environment is important. Open space and parks. A lot of our tables really focused on open space and parks because we had many conversations about architectural look and feel. We really wanted to dig in because we knew that was an important element to the community. So we talked about several levels of parks. And so we showed images of parks, and as you can see, these are the top vote getters. And what you see consistently here is that there is an element that is a little bit formal and a little bit informal. These aren't totally they're not unprogrammed. There are places to sit. There are manicured areas. There are lawns, but there's also shade and a softness to it, while also, there's grass to maintain that allows some flexibility. You could have a picnic. You could play a game of flag football or kick a ball. That seemed to be favorable. We also talked about plazas because we're starting to think about a hierarchy of open spaces and a variety of open spaces. And so again, what we see is softness of ability, a lot of really interesting lighting opportunities, and always interacting and with a mix of places to sit and be more engaged with others, also places that you could sit and be alone. And hubs. And what we mean by hubs, I think that, and Bob alluded to this a little bit when he was talking about the Verizon site. Hubs are, you may only have one or two of these in the entire Deerfield study area, but we did want to ask, what are the major, we hear a lot about having a place for big community gatherings. And so what do you like in those? And you can see here, there's an element of, again, the ability to have a variety of types of activities happen while also having a large gathering space is a consistent thing we see in the images favored. I think that, again, if we combine sort of all the comments we got about all these spaces, it's very clear that green spaces and trees are really important. Shade is really important, and a balance of being active while also being balancing that with density. So a lot of comments talked about the activity level and the amenities that are available in Avalon and downtown Alpharetta, but also not having buildings that are too big, right? And I think you can think of that not in terms of density, but in terms of activation. How active are these spaces? And we'll get to it in a minute, but we really think we understand sort of where that should be versus, where it's a little slower and less active. We also wanted to understand, because we've heard a lot about amenities, and so we kind of wanted to get a sense of what type of amenities does the community want, because it could go a variety of different directions. So if you look at it from a cultural standpoint, what you see is an opportunity to have a small amphitheater, but also really places to sit around the fire pit with your neighbor and your family and friends. Something more lighthearted. We were really, I think, pleasantly surprised even by the image in the middle where you see the hammocks sitting there, that, there's this, you see here, sort of, there is something playful that the community liked about these images, the ability to gather and play chess and whatnot. So, and sit in a hammock. And then again, we see the consistent theme of tables with lights. We also, saw a little bit of favorability towards having water and fountains. And then you see something playful on the far right with, sort of an art installation / turf. So again, I think what you're seeing is variation, but again, it's opportunities for gathering with your community. Keywords through these boards that came up, and again, we had a lot of comments on all of these boards, but they really, the comments emphasized gathering spots that had a natural look and feel and family-friendly spaces. So places to play, have picnics, and enjoy the outdoors. What kind of programs and events ranged from live music, farmers markets, casual community gatherings. But I think, and you saw this a little bit in the imagery, flexible spaces that would allow for community interaction. And what that means is, it's also comfortable to be in when there's not a large community event. And that's something that takes thoughtfulness to design, right? That you can design for large events, but is also something that people feel comfortable and feel scaled to be in to just walk around with your kids. And then the retail experience. The community wants restaurants that are integrated into the outdoor experience, including coffee shops, cozy cafes, and bakeries, and a clear desire of these elements having a relationship to parks and open space. There were a lot of references to places like Avalon, downtown Greenville, South Carolina, and Swanee. Let me ask a little more detail, understanding that landscape is going to be an important character defining element for Deerfield. It's currently something that exists on Deerfield Parkway, but it doesn't necessarily in the large parking lots of the office buildings. You don't know whether you're in Milton or where you are, really, right? And so how can we infuse that with the landscape? There was a clear preference. We showed a couple different palettes, a rural palette, which really all got favorable, highly favorable ratings, to modern farmhouse, also very favorable. And less favorable was the contemporary, but what we did learn is that there's still throughout a strong preference for trees and rural charm and less interest in a contemporary feel. But comments did say some contemporary elements infused in there were supported. Again, we go back to this functional spaces, places with seating, protected paths, opening and welcoming for community gatherings, and not just landscaping, but lights and fountains were a clear preference to have. And I think good lighting, comfortable lighting, something that's not too bright. If you go to the Publix parking lot, that's abundant lighting, but it's not necessarily comfortable lighting, right? And so you really want something that's welcoming. Okay, so the online survey results. So just to kind of, I think, and Bob alluded to this, we had, it was about a 55-45 split. And this is what you would expect to have an online survey. You would expect to have more participation from outside the study area. And there was about a 34% participation rate of those who work in the study area versus those who did not. So again, I think if you'll notice this, the image that was the favorite was also the most favored in the community outreach. Again, we're seeing consistency, and this tracks with all the conversations we've had. And again, I think what you see here is this is something, it has a roof deck, it's got outdoor dining. It's just very engaged. This building is very engaged indoor and outdoor. Mixed use was a little different on the online survey. So if you look on the picture on the left, this building that was listed as the favorite wasn't voted as a favorite in the community engagement, the in-person, but it does hold in consistency in that there's a scale to it, there's a variation, it doesn't look flat, which I think the image on the right, it looks a little flat, it's got small windows, it doesn't quite feel welcoming. You also see opportunities for public space in the picture on the left. And what we heard for this in the online survey was family-friendly and community-oriented, rustic, small-town aesthetic, having nature and green space, and walkability and local business support. This is almost exactly the same as the in-person voting and the socialization. So again, you see the lighting, the opportunities to sit amongst the trees and enjoy a beer with your neighbor. Cornhole is, I guess, pretty popular in Milton. But again, you see the chess, you see the cornhole. But on the far right, you see something a little different, which is a splash pad, a larger water feature. And for culture, these are the same three images were the top vote getters in the in-person. Switch the order around a bit, but again, I think we're seeing consistency: amphitheater, fire pit, coffee, food truck kind of experience. So a lot of different scales, but a lot of consistency. The top comments were quaint, Milton-inspired spaces, again, family-friendly, multi-use paths with gathering spots. So scenic walking and biking trails with rest areas, picnic spots, spaces for food trucks and events, blending relaxation and socialization. The rural imagery, again, consistency. Modern farmhouse also received strong feedback. Contemporary actually got more positive feedback in the online survey than it did in the in-person. But again, I think what we do see as a consistent comment is some a little bit mixed in, maybe appropriate for Deerfield, not everywhere, right? So native greenery, trails, water features, and timeless material, authentic character, not overly manufactured, urban styles, minimal contemporary elements that blend with Milton's rural charm. And again, pedestrian-friendly spaces that are community-centered, walkable, shaded. So as I said, the feedback from the community is a desire for more opportunities to enjoy food and beverage and entertainment in Deerfield in a more walkable environment than exists today. So some key takeaways that we've had, Bob referenced those conversations that we've had on market and economic development, open space, and mobility. And so some of the takeaways of those conversations that have been in depth with a little bit of smaller group of stakeholders are this. So the preference is for high quality architecture and a high quality public realm. So the analysis for the market was done with this in mind. The change in the market dynamics influencing how retail is developed is significant. So the North Fulton market is shifting away from single-use developments to mixed-use developments. What we know is that the Orkin site today is much less likely to be developed as it is as a single-use retail environment and much more likely to be developed as a mixed-use environment. That's just the market in North Fulton. The North Fulton office market, which, as you all know, there is a lot of office in North Fulton, and it is shifting away from being office parks with single-use office and shifting to highly amenitized live, work, play environments that are and those amenities are dependent on commercial and residential components. What we heard from our group of consultants about transportation and mobility. Mobility and better connectivity within the district are a priority for the community. But we came to the table also knowing that that's also a priority for you in the city of Milton. And that includes the creation of new connections through existing large parcels, and then also better connectivity and pedestrian infrastructure on existing streets. So that's vehicular, pedestrian, bikes, golf carts. Better connectivity is dependent on a better and safer pedestrian activity, safer intersections, better sidewalks, and active and passive trails. It also means a reduction in surface parking can offer an opportunity to gain density bonuses for property owners, because I think what we have heard is, can we get rid of all these surface parking lots? It's a lot of concrete, and shift that into something that is more amenable on all levels. A key increase in connectivity, and we've talked about this, but it keeps coming up, is a Deerfield loop. And we'll show you that in a minute, but I think a multi-use path keeps coming up in the community feedback, but it also is very much what our transportation consultant feels like is a really important component to improve connectivity in Deerfield. So that's what you see here on the right. Now, it's small and hard to see. I apologize, the Deerfield study area is large. But what we know is that quality open space, as you heard, even in comments about architecture, the comments really relate to open space. And both passive and active open space is a priority for the community. So how do we do that? As we think about redevelopment of those areas that Bob had in his earlier map, it's about creating a hierarchy of open space that offers the opportunity to imprint the unique Milton character throughout Deerfield. So that comes in the way of plazas, passive parks, but also active parks, hubs, specialty parks, linear parks, and the Deerfield area offers the opportunity to create all of those throughout the district. What we will do in the design guidelines is offer a menu of these typologies to create choices and varieties from the developers. So in other words, a developer can come in and say, I want to create, I need some plazas here to really create a great retail environment or a great environment for my office building, but I have this opportunity over here to do some passive space, a little passive pocket park. To be able to take the design guidelines, be inspired by those to choose this hierarchy of open space so you have a variety of that in Deerfield is the direction that we're taking to provide what the community has asked for, which is the opportunity to gather socially, but also that opportunity to have some passive space as well. Again, a key element to the open space is also this Deerfield loop. So it satisfies what the community is looking for from an open space component and a mobility component. And what you see is the big idea is that there is a real active element to the loop of this multi-use trail, which is through the center spine in the middle, and then having less active, more passive opportunities on this multi-use trail. So what you can imagine is that you have a trail loop through the entire Deerfield study area that transitions, depending on where you're at, into something that's maybe in a retail environment and then into a natural environment. And then in some areas, maybe like on Cogburn, maybe to the side of the road, but it's still a more natural, passive multi-use trail. An important component of that is that this trail is also designed with, it's not just a wider sidewalk, but it has trees and shade. That is something that we've heard about with this loop, is shade is really important. But also, if you look into the south, the ability to connect to via Deerfield Parkway to the south, eventually connect into the Alpha Loop is something that we've heard a lot about, particularly from the younger participants in the community engagement have really talked a lot about this to us. And so, Bob,
Can you go back to
Yeah.
that slide? Yeah, I just want to let the council know that a lot of the green is the main loop. And a lot of that is very consistent with what Public Works has been working on with the trail plan. A lot of it's completed already. It's all there or scheduled to be completed. So we made, like the city would be completing all those trail networks and connections and segments, and that would be the main loop. So when you see the big green going through the center, can you just demonstrate that?
Mm-hmm.
Just show with the cursor.
Oh, the cursor, yeah.
Down the center is Highway 9. So everything to the left, which is towards Cogburn, would be the passive section of the loop. And then everything to the right would be the more active section. So we'd have like a passive and an active. So the trail is already kind of almost there with the city's trail plan. What we're doing is just identifying the type of trail, what the amenities are on the trail, and everything you're seeing in red are the segments of the trails that private developers would be doing to connect their developments to our main trail. So it's something that I think we're pretty far along with to get, and the community's been asking for this, as you can see, but I think the city's sort of on the right target, and we're almost there as far as achieving a lot of this, and it really was the top priority, was these trails and amenities. And I think we're pretty far along. I don't think that there's going to be a huge investment on the city's behalf to complete this, our portion of this sort of loop or trail or whatever we'd like to call it and name it.
Is there a consistent width on the green sections? Are they
Yes.
all 10 foot right now? That's been in?
Yes. Yeah, all the green is 10, and then anything that was, I believe, blue was
8 to 10.
like 8 to 10, and then anything was like 5 to 8 was the blue, and then the red would be, we would make the developers, when they come in for their individual developments, we're going to say, look, even though we have the main trail, which might be abutting, say, a Highway 9, even at 10 feet, we're still going to make them put a segment of the trail, like you can get off Highway 9 and go into their development, enjoy their development, and then come back onto it. But the city is giving the main trail loop, and then all the segments would be by the developers. And they are all nice widths. That's what Public Works and the Trail Committee has been working on for many years. So when we put it all together and really looked at it, because part of the plan is to go back and say, well, what has the city done? You know, we don't really want to deviate from a lot of the things that we've spent years putting together, communities embraced. We're just saying, well, okay, great. Now we have all these segments. Well, just how do we identify them better? How do we mark them better? How do we name them and brand them? How do we let people know that they're really on a loop, you know, that they're on that trail? Maybe you put mile markers or, you know, distance markers, and maybe like Allison and I were talking about before, maybe in these hub areas we have public bathrooms and other things you were talking about.
Yeah. So I think what we also know is the importance of having access to trail amenities. I mean, you can think about, I see the bikers gather here, the cyclists gathering here for their ride. It's near a restroom. You want to be able to provide some amenities for the trail users that that actually draw people to the trail, have bike racks, maybe some bike share stations, and you do that at certain spots. And I think what we have also talked about is anywhere there's structured parking, that's always and there's structured parking near the trail, that's a component of the structured parking deck. And that's something that is contributed in concert with the private development. I would also just add, you know, one thing that has come up is kind of the ability for the students at Cambridge High School are looking for the ability to do there what the students here at Milton High School can do in Crabapple, right? You come here in the afternoon and you're in the community, and they're here, they're hanging out in the green space, they're hanging out in the smoothie shop. So we did definitely hear that from the younger population here, is having the opportunity not only to feel safe walking around the Deerfield district, and I think the trail is a really important component of that, because you can connect Cambridge High School in a safe manner, not reliant on Highway 9, but reliant on a safe way to get to and from potentially what may be have more retail activity, which is to the south, in this system. So, and then there are certainly retail opportunities at the Bethany intersection with Highway 9. And so how can people feel safe to and from the school was something that we heard a lot about.
And just one more thing. I did speak to most of the landowners, told them about the highest priority is trails, you know, within the city and within this district. And every one of them have embraced this concept and said that they would be more than willing to incorporate trails and networks and connections into their developments. So I really don't think there's going to be a big ask when the city says to a developer who's coming in, can you do that? We had even Stone Creek. I said that would be a mid-block connection between Highway 9 and Cogburn, and they totally embraced it. Every single, I don't want to name them all, but they all embraced these segments and these connection points and what we're looking to do. It does indirectly, really, maybe directly, benefit all of their developments. It's bringing people to them if there's a retail component, or just let them know that it's there. So it's kind of like they want to see people connecting and have mobility through the district. So it's not going to be a big ask. I think it's the highest priority, and I think it's going to be a win-win. We're really going to be able to get this in. So it's good news.
So I think one important element is that that we've talked about, and kind of going back to what we understand about the market, but also what we understand about the character of Deerfield, is that the northern portion of Highway 9 isn't the same as the Verizon site, southern Deerfield Parkway. And so how do you start to think about that? It is a cohesive district, but how do you start to break that down? And I think that, one of the things that's really important to note is that I don't think that there is no consideration to change the transect zone designations throughout the corridor. I think that what's in place is workable and will get the city where they want to be in Deerfield. And so, but what we did in thinking about the urban design guidelines, we wanted to break it down into districts, excuse me, of character area, but it also really starts to break down very similar to the transect zones. So you have really to what is the future Bethany Road connection to the north and moving north to the northern city limits is what we would call the North District. The Central District really captures that Bethany Bend Road commercial area, Stone Creek, down to Stone Creek Church and Cambridge High School. It really feels like a cohesive district area. There's going to be similarities both in use and in scale of redevelopment opportunities. And then I think, that southern portion, south of Stone Creek Church, all the way to Windward Parkway along Highway 9 is a different character area. Right now, it is currently a lot of single-use auto-dominant retail. As that transitions, it's going to be different than what's to the north of there in character, but not wholesalely different, right? But you will feel a transition I think at Stone Creek Church, where it's starting to feel a little bit less active. But you still have a Publix and Pike Nursery to the north, but feels a little slower. Not too fast, right? But then really and that goes all the way over, really includes the northern portion of Morris Road above Webb Road, because again, it's a lot of residential behind Highway 9, off of Highway 9. But then much like the break in the transect zones, the South Deerfield Parkway, which really represents, as Bob said, the bulk of the non-retail commercial tax base. And so that's really where we're going to think about carefully about how do you activate those spaces? How do they become an important and active element of the community, where it's not just where people drive to go to the office, right? How does it become a community amenity other than just contributing to the tax base? But also, how do you better activate those properties? We know that Verizon is, there's redevelopment opportunities throughout that zone. And so how do you do it thoughtfully? But again, it feels cohesive with the North District, but it is different from the North District, right? In terms of level of activity. And that's for now. Any questions? That's a lot.
There's a lot, but it was good stuff. Any questions for Allison or Bob? Do you have any more slides on yours? Okay.
The presentation that just won't end. can never skip a month. Okay. Wait, Allison, wait, can you get me back to, just get me back to the presentation.
Yeah.
I thought I had some more.
Is it one?
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just want to go through some quick next steps. We're going to continue city staff consultant regular meetings. We're doing very well with that. We're going to continue meetings with developers, which we've been doing, and working on their concept build-outs. We're going to further develop the urban design manual and 3D modeling, which we're targeting for 12/31. That was our original target date, and we're holding to that date. We're having a second open house on December 11th. I think I'd just like to keep advertising that as much as I can. We're working with Greg's group, who's just been very dynamic. I know he's just sitting there quiet, but behind the scenes, he's been doing a lot with us and really partnering very nicely. We're going to be doing videos and now podcasts about, the Deerfield area, what we're thinking. And then I want to just remind the council that the current moratorium expires on December 2nd, which is just a little bit in advance of what our target date was for the completion. So we did advertise in the Milton Herald, which it was due on 11/14. We wanted to make sure we had the advertisement in there. And staff is on at the December 2nd council meeting will make a presentation, probably recommend a 60-day extension to the current moratorium. That would give me enough time to bring me through the month of December and to have the second meeting in January to be able to present it to council, show it to you all if you have any questions or feedback, and we'd be able to come back. So by the end of January, we should have this process completed. Now, the nice part is that we keep studying all the details of the zoning. I just want to remind the council, to date, we are not recommending any density changes. They're fine. They're working just the way they are with all the developments. And we're not recommending any use changes. We looked through the use chart and said, we have a good array of uses that are available. And, we might say some of them aren't use permits, and we're going to recommend them to be a use permit or vice versa. But on the most part, Mayor will be keeping all of those. Those are the big elements. The things we're probably going to be coming back to you all with is like, how do we define open space? How do we change that? How do we embellish on the open space? Instead of just saying it's 10% of the lot area, plazas, trails, how do we induce all of that into these projects? So there'll be things that we're asking the council to look at as far as zoning changes, but the real core underlying elements of the zoning will really have no effect.
Hey, Bob, where is the open house on the 11th?
That's going to be in the courtroom at the Public Safety Complex.
Okay. Is there something on the 21st of this week? I have something on my
Yes.
calendar.
Yes,
There is.
there is.
Okay.
As a presentation.
That's a
Okay.
presentation.
Okay.
All right, so just a reminder, all July 1st to September 30th was phase 1. We've hit those targets. October 1st to December 31st will be phase 2, which is the urban design manual, and finishing up the traffic study, the water study, and the landscape plans. And we're on target to hit that. And then the final phase is just any code revisions or items that we needed between January and May. It just takes that long to get it through the actual cycle of the legal cycle to change anything in the code.
Where's this meeting Thursday?
I don't know if I'm going to let anybody take off next Thursday, Friday for the
to,
holidays.
so we presented some market to Councilman Jacobus and Kramer about 3 weeks ago. So we had the conversation to present it to others this coming week. So we have 2 meetings presenting that market information.
But it's a Zoom, right?
And it says, yes, it is. It's virtual.
It's a virtual meeting.
Yes.
We
All
just
right.
wanted to make sure the council, all the
Okay.
members kind of see that presentation
Okay.
and ask questions about it. All right, any other, just a reminder of the open house, but other than that, any questions?
No, I appreciate it. I think the community feedback's been fantastic, which is
Mhm.
good. So,
Yeah. I forgot to mention, yes, credit to Greg and his group. I think it's been well advertised. And we've also gotten a lot of additional, keep getting feedback from people signing up to get that information. So, he was smart enough to put a couple of questions in there. So, good job.
Greg, just keep promoting the heck out of it, please. What time is it on the 11th?
5:30, yes.
5:30?
5:30.
And then my only comment, Allison, thank you for culminating all that data and presenting that out. For me, the most important thing is it's the community's thoughts and feedback, right? The
Yeah.
experience that they want along,
Yeah.
Deerfield and Highway 9, and it's all starting to come to fruition. So it's
Yeah.
great to see through this process. Thank you.
And it was a kind of just quick, it was amazing to see that the online survey, which was more Milton overall, they still picked the same photos and favorability than we did on the smaller groups when we still had 100, but in the in-person ones where most of the people lived in the district. So it's kind of Milton in general, I think, is pretty consistent on the look and feel of what they're looking to get out of it.
It's
Everybody's
consistent to
happy
everything
with
I've
it.
heard. People don't want Avalon. They don't want downtown Alpharetta. They want Milton. They want
Yes.
something unique that's different, that is their place of sense around that area. And you're starting to
Yes.
see that. I mean,
Yeah.
that really isn't anything that we've seen around. It's not downtown Alpharetta. It's not the congestion of an Avalon, right?
Mm-hmm. And I was just confirming with Greg, just for reference, the total respondents on the online survey was 269. So that was really good feedback, just kind of to give reference.
Is that good relative to other surveys that you would?
Okay, that is the longest survey.
It was long.
Yeah.
So the fact that that many people went through all those questions is
Mhm.
pretty impressive.
Good.
If you had a survey of 3 questions, you would get a little more people, but people invested the time. is
Yeah.
impressive. I was expecting 150 or so.
We committed to asking the same questions in the online survey that we did at the community meeting, so
Yeah.
that there we were getting the same information. So it was a longer survey. It wasn't just a 3-minute survey, and 269 people. I would also say we got a lot of comments, so it wasn't just voting, but a lot of comments. So, it takes a long time to aggregate that in a meaningful way. Anyway.
Anything else?
Any other
great.
questions for Bob or Allison? No?
Very thorough.
We appreciate it.
I
Thanks, y'all.
apologize for the
Good
long
stuff.
meeting.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the first presentation. Will the city clerk please sound the item?
Mayor, that item is consideration of an ordinance dissolving the Milton Green Space Advisory Committee. It's agenda item number 24331. Mayor Jameson?
All right, do I have a motion on the first presentation item?
I'll make a motion on the first presentation item, number 24-331.
Second.
To approve? To approve it? Just restate that motion real quick.
I make a motion to approve agenda item 24-331.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilmember Cranmer and a second from Councilor Haney to approve the first presentation item, agenda item number 24-331. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Okay. There's no public hearing, no zoning agenda. We'll move on to unfinished business. Will city clerk please sound the item?
That first item is consideration of an ordinance accepting the revised Georgia Municipal Employees Benefit System, known as GMEB, Defined Benefit Retirement Plan and General Addendum. It's agenda item number 24321. Our Human Resource Director, Ms. Nikki Graham.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Nikki Graham, Human Resources Director. Thank you all. This is for consideration of an ordinance accepting of the revised amendments through the IRS for our General Municipal Employees Benefit System, GMEBS. This was adopted on August 31st of 2023 with a favorable opinion from the IRS.
Ms. Nikki, do you have a presentation? Do you have a presentation on there? Or?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
I thought it was already. Okay.
There we go.
I
Thank
thought
you.
so. Thank you. Okay, do you want me to start over or just continue?
No, you can keep going.
Okay, so this was adopted on August 31st of 2023 with the IRS with a favorable opinion letter. These amendments are routine with our benefits, Georgia Municipal Employees Benefit System. And this is a requirement of the city to adopt as the ordinance. It has no impact with the city. It was reviewed with the city's legal team, Gerard and Davis LLP, on October the 15th, 2024. So this is just approval for that ordinance.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay. Any council discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I'll open it for a motion.
Make a motion to approve agenda item number 24-321.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Haney and a second from Councilmember Johnson to approve agenda item number 24-321. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Councilmember Cranmer, not here. All right, we will move on to new business. Will the city clerk please sound the item?
Mayor, that next item is consideration of a resolution adopting the 2025 City of Milton City Council regular meeting and work session schedule. It is agenda item number 24-332. I am going to have AV pull the calendar up for us. Instead of me going down to the podium, I'm going to speak to you all here if you don't mind. So every year we present to council a proposed draft meeting or schedule for the subsequent year that will be coming up, which obviously will be 2025. You'll have a copy there in front of you. Wanted you to take note of some of the color codes that we have there. You'll see that the regular city council meetings are in blue, work sessions are indicated in red, and then of course the city holidays are recognized in green. A few things I just wanted to mention to you. There'll be 3 meetings in 2025 that will fall on a Wednesday. So that's a little less than what we normally have, just the way the holidays fall. You'll notice that we've identified Fulton County spring break in pink, and we have identified the Fulton County full fall break that will be indicated in orange. So of course, every year we present this to you for adoption via resolution. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Tammy? Any public comment? Open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve agenda item number 24-332.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Cookerly and a second from Councilman Jacobus to approve agenda item number 24-332. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Any council reports? Anybody have anything? Okay, with that, we'll adjourn to executive session to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and litigation. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Haney and a second from Councilman Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, can we have motion to reconvene?
I motion to reconvene.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?